From Carolla One Studios in Glendale, California, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, Jerry Springer. With Gina Grad on news, Walt Bryan on sound effects, and a spirited round of who the fuck sells this shit. And now, at his inauguration, he'd swear on an untouched copy of We the People from the North Hollywood High book room. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but to get on. A mandate. You get it on now. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for sharing, right, Gina Grad?
That's right.
And Bald Bryan.
Don't do that.
Oh, the great Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds.
Jerry Springer is going to be joining us. Jerry's
Such a great guest.
One of these guys who's, I guess, public persona, image, or whatever is quite a fair distance from who he is when you speak to him. So,
It's fair.
Yeah, you do find that there's a real guy there. You find that with all these guys. You know, you find it. Maybe on one side, on Springer. On the other side, Donald Trump Jr. Like once you talk to them, you realize, oh, they're just regular. Everyone is. Most people. Here's a concept. Tucker Carlson's that way. He's like, there's a lot of vitriol for Tucker Carlson, but if you ever spend any time with him, he's a delightful guy. It's actually the people who have the tough, I just use the word tough, the people that have the sort of complicated and whatever public persona, those people tend to be the nicest, and then the people who appear to have the nice persona,
and dance.
Those are the sort of coldest and harshest. When the cameras and mics are off.
Who's a great example of this is Larry Miller, who made a literal career out of playing jerks and, the smart guy or the whatever. He was the dean and nutty professor, and he was the asshole salesperson in the Julia Roberts movie.
Pretty Woman.
The hooker.
Woman.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
The gross old friend of Catherine O'Hara and Best in Show.
Yes, that's
him.
him. That's his persona, and he's the nicest guy.
It's a great example.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good example, but I'm talking about non-acting. Like I'm talking about just talk show hosts
how
or
they
sort
present
of
themselves to the world,
who they are versus scripted stuff. But anyway, Springer's a good dude, and he's more interesting and nuanced and complex. So we'll talk to him in a second, or in about an hour actually. Got stuff to get into. I got Bill Maher clip. We found superfan Giovanni found the Grodin clip. Charles Grodin, me on
broke
the show.
into CNBC headquarters.
He found it because I talked about it on Loveline that night and was playing clips of it. So as I think about it, the way Loveline would work is it would start at 10 in the evening. And I would do multiple things oftentimes before doing Loveline. So if I was on The Tonight Show, I would do The Tonight Show, and then I would do Loveline. And if I was on Letterman, I'd do Letterman, and then I'd do The Tonight Show. Then I'd do Loveline. Or if whatever had happened, Man Show, bit, we were filming, or whatever it is. So it's actually a pretty good archive because whatever I did during that day, during that date, in that time, I would then walk into Loveline several hours later, and that would be the thing I would be talking about. So it's an interesting archive in that whatever thing I was doing in that particular time in my life, I always discussed it probably first on the show in that on that show. When was that show? 97?
97, yes.
A very public diary. Oh, diary, today I did the Charles Grodin Show.
Well, it's interesting in that if you are a newscaster or even if you're hosting a late night show or you're doing some other game show or some other formatted show, sitcom or whatever, you don't walk in and talk about what you did that day. You have a script, there's news, there's all that. We didn't have any of that. So the script was whatever happened during the day. And evidently nothing ever happened with Dr. Drew during the daylight hours because he would just come in there as a blank slate. And I'd go, what do you got, Drew? And he'd go, I don't know. I don't got anything.
Save anyone's life today? Nothing?
Well, he was handcuffed by HIPAA back then.
Yeah.
You couldn't talk about, like, I treated this poor guy who had sold his cat for heroin.
Yeah, as long as you leave the names out, you could probably tell him. Dr. Drew has a very strange construct in that he's one of the most diligent people you'll ever meet in your life. But when it came to us playing colleges with 3,000 people in the audience, before we went on stage, I'd always say, Drew, what do you got? You got a story? What do you want to talk about? And he'd just go, I don't know. And I thought it's weird because he would turn into a delinquent F student all of a sudden when it came to any kind of prep. But he would always say, oh, well, that's the format of Loveline. The format is, no format. Like and I was like, yeah, kind of, but you could still.
I'm glad I make it look so easy.
We're on a stage.
We're on a stage in front of 3,000 people. You could jot down a note. So Gio pulled Grodin from, I guess that night, me going to Loveline from 1997.
Well, actually, you replayed clips from it in 3 days. It was in November of '97. So I just whacked it all up to. Just
okay. And who am I on with? Am I on with the ladies that wrote the?
Yeah, you'll set it up. You set it up in the clip here.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's enjoy.
We have a little snippet from it. We didn't really edit it much. It's just basically, the show's basically a free-for-all. I was in Los Angeles. Charles Grodin was in New York. There was two women who wrote the book The Rules, which is a dating guide. Were in New York with Grodin, along with one other sane woman who does I don't know what. And then there was another guy somewhere else, but I don't know where he is. But here's a little snippet of me attacking the women from The Rules. Engineer Mike?
You have to say to yourself, as someone who was in a marriage for a long time, the most important thing in life is to be happy. You must be happy. You're acting like, well, you're not married, therefore... That's terrible.
We're talking to two single guys. We're making fun of the
Maybe they're happy. Maybe they're actually happy.
But
like
the girls that write us want to get married to him.
I don't mean to be rude, but are your husbands really happy?
Move on to someone else.
I think they're happier out on the road promoting the book.
They're calling him.
These women can't be happy when they sleep with a man.
Adam, you are a pig. You are a pig. You just said that their husbands they're happy that they're away, but you are a pig.
Charles, can you imagine living with these two yentas? Come on.
I think they're smart.
You kill yourself.
I think they're smart.
A girl's gonna go out with him. He's
your husband's at a strip bar right now.
A girl's gonna go out with him.
I'm telling you, he's stuffing singles into a G-string as we speak.
If we were dating you, it's 2 years, we would be like gone. We don't date a man for 2 years.
Good riddance.
Good. I mean, there are plenty of guys.
God, I didn't read that book. We'd be married.
You make a living doing this, Adam?
Yeah, well, what do you do for a living, Charles? Come on.
I mean, basically, you're just attacking. It's a book. It's a guide to rape. You've got a book on smoking.
I bet he hasn't read the book.
When it comes in pop-up, I'll read it.
We'll send it to you.
And what is Loveline?
Visit our website.
What is Loveline? You give advice on MTV.
I sit there and make an ass of myself, but Dr. Drew, who's a actual medical physician,
you have a medical person sitting with you? Do you really?
Certainly.
Hold on, pause it for a second. There you go. He did that Letterman
What is
thing.
Loveline?
Now listen, you have segment producers. There's tons of producers, and they will do pre-meetings and want to know about this. First off, you don't say to the host, who's the guest? The host doesn't say who's the guest tonight, and you go Loveline. And the host goes, oh, okay, I've never heard of that, but fine, we'll have him on.
I'll wait till we get on stage.
I'll wait till we get out there. So he did that Letterman move I was telling you guys about, which is, what is Loveline? Who is that? What do you guys do? Again, could all be settled in a 15-second conversation by a segment producer, and probably surely was, but
it was discussed 100%.
Grodin had to do the what is Loveline. Sorry, you can back it up 10 seconds and just run it.
I don't mean to be rude, but are your husbands really happy?
Move on to someone else.
I think they're happier out on the road promoting the book.
They're calling him.
You rewound it a ways there, Dawson. It's hard to do 10
I
seconds.
didn't see my mark when I hit stop, and it went to the beginning of the file, so
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
We'll figure it out.
You are a pig. You just said their husbands have. They're happy that they're away, but you are a
Charles,
pig.
can you imagine living with these two yentas? Come on.
I think they're smart.
You kill yourself.
I think they're
A girl's gonna
smart.
go out with him. He's
Oh, your
cute
husband's
and
at a
wanna
strip bar right now.
A girl's gonna go out with him.
I'm telling
sleep
you.
with him,
They're
and call him
stuffing
for money.
singles into a G-string as we speak.
If we were dating you, it's 2 years, we would be like gone. We don't date a man for 2 years.
Good riddance.
Good. I mean, there are
What are you
plenty
gonna
of
marry?
guys.
God, I didn't read that
There's
book. We'd be
plenty of
married.
guys.
You make a living doing this, Adam?
Yeah, well, what do you do for a living, Charles? Come on.
I mean, basically, you're just attacking. It's a book. It's a guide to rape. You've
I
got
bet
a
he
book
hasn't
on
read the book.
smoking.
I bet he hasn't read the book. Ask him if he's read the book.
When it comes in pop-up, I'll read it.
We'll send it to you.
And what is Love
Visit our
Line?
website.
What is Love Line? You give advice on MTV.
I sit there and make an ass of myself, but Dr. Drew, who's a actual medical physician,
You have a medical
gives
person
advice.
sitting with you? Do you really?
Certainly.
Oh, I see.
What, don't you read the bio, Charles? Come on.
No, I didn't read the bio. They just said you were phenomenal, and I could see that, in any case.
We want to talk to his girlfriend. He wants to
All right, pause
help his
it.
girlfriend.
Did you hear his, He goes,
any case.
they said you're phenomenal, but in any case, I told you. Am I
He has a
exaggerating his interviewing skills at all?
No, not at all.
It's
No,
funny.
no.
It besides the pointed disdain, it reminds me of the Larry King, Jerry Seinfeld, where did they cancel you or did you cancel Seinfeld? Larry, did anyone give you a one sheet on me? You think I got canceled? He's doing the same thing.
Madonna, your daughter, Lords. Tell me about her.
Do you think Grodin was doing a bit of a takeoff on Larry King, who doesn't always have the most researched, nuanced questions? Or do you think he was just doing straight shtick, which is, like we said yesterday, like Jiminy Glick without the wink?
I will tell you something I've noticed. I haven't talked about in a while, but the morning radio duo, ass crack and back sack in the morning, and they're not particularly funny. So this is a more nuanced version of that. So it's hard to come up with clever witticisms every 10 seconds, off the cuff. But in lieu of being able to do that, you just go, lame, so lame,
Right.
dude, lame.
Right.
Hey, you see that new Tom Cruise movie? Lame, so lame. Yeah, right. And so in lieu of being able to think of really funny shit all the time, you just kind of throw some negative attitude. And
How about that, dude?
Right. And so I think Grodin is doing kind of a white collar version of those guys, which is I can't really think of funny things to add, so I'll just kind of roll my eyes and go, ugh, yeah, whatever. They tell me. Like it's kind of like I will roast you, but with no funny jokes, but with attitude.
Yeah, no punchline.
Right.
Yeah.
In as much as he's not a comedian, he's an actor. He's not Letterman. He's not Leno. He's not any of those guys. I think it's pretty funny, but I also look at it from like, Charles Grodin. I don't expect, joke after joke after joke off the cuff.
Well, it makes for an entertaining interview, but you have to ask yourself, what if he was interviewing someone who wasn't that funny? Then it would be.
Right.
It does rely on.
Right. Relies
But
on
to
me.
be able to having your chops busted.
Yes, jousting with him. All right, sorry,
Right.
go ahead.
The
Dawson.
Don Rickles clip worked for that.
Right.
Phenomenal, and I could see that, in any case.
We want to talk to his girlfriend. He wants to
What about
help his girlfriend out.
Rich,
She's dancing for your husbands right now. Come on.
Oh, these women would not shut up.
So that is it. But I'm glad you got to hear a little Grodin's interviewing technique. Ugh.
Note. I forgot about the rules. God, those women got a lot of mileage out of the rules.
I know. I don't know if it was an Oprah book club thing or it was just one of those stupid zeitgeist, right time, right place. Remember
Right.
all
It's
those?
like men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah.
It was right time, right place.
Yeah. I don't think a book about like how to land a man would go over in today's world. You know what I mean?
No, now I got to lean in.
That's a great point. The title is The Rules, Time-Tested Secrets for Capturing the Heart of Mr. Right. And I don't think that was time sensitive, maybe not time tested.
That was the end of an era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be, you would be chewed up and spat out now on Twitter. And
that'd be a great gift.
See if you can find a used one on Amazon paperback. God, and I wonder. Well, all right. I know book publishing. Those chicks had to write the rules too.
Oh, I bet there was a series.
Oh, there is.
Yeah. I'll bet there was a series.
There's a yellow version, a pink version, and then the rules too.
All right. Then there might be a rules for teens.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And then there'd be a rules for dogs.
Right.
The new rules.
And then there have to be the gay rules. Like you're just going to have to keep writing that rules thing into the ground.
Yep.
All right. Well, there you go, ladies who are all dying to get married. By the way, the dying to get married thing was just a common conceit of the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. Half the Love Boat episodes you watch, it's the mother and her daughter, and the mother's like saying, "Stand up straight, dear. No one wants to marry someone who slouches."
Well, the whole idea of Mr. Right. You got to land Mr. Right.
Yes, you got to land Mr. Right.
These women are brilliant because they've repurposed the title several ways. The rules for marriage, the rules to not your mother's rules. Yeah. And finally, the genius, all the rules.
Yes.
So you just make all the books into one and just keep repurposing and selling.
Like I said, if I know untalented people in initial book sales, I know there's a bunch of follow-ups coming down the pike. Because, when you're Jon Stewart, you write a book, and then 5 years goes by, and then you just write another book. But it's not the same book.
We got to be a Boondock Saints 2 and 3.
Look out for in 50 years we'll all be chicks, part 2. Yeah. All right.
In 60 years.
I watched the Biden address today. I thought it was a good address. I feel like he needed a little Aquanet. He had this tuft of hair that was kind of blowing around behind him, had a little small peacock kind of fantail thing. I always wonder about that stuff because, the way I'm wired is I immediately become distracted. There was a little wind. It didn't seem windy. It just seemed like there was some wind. And he had a tuft of hair on the back of his scalp that just kind of popped up, and it was just kind of waving at me the whole time. But I always think to myself, at that level, you know what I mean? Like we have to have, and I guess you could certainly say it about Trump. Like at that level,
right.
Don't we got hair and makeup, right?
Oh, you think you'd have the best.
And the hair and makeup person, like the hair person has to go out, kind of lick their finger and hold it up into the wind a little bit. Like, what are we talking about?
A little recon.
Is it rainy outside? Is it windy outside? Like what should we do? And if in fact it is a little bit gusty, got to double down on the Aquanet or whatever the hairspray is.
I'm going to take this in a different direction. It's going to sound self-serving, but stick with me. I've done some thinking about this. We're now on 2 consecutive presidents with, Biden and Trump with questionable hair at best. Mm-hmm. Why not a bald president? And you might be thinking, the optics, for certain people. But the last one was Eisenhower. That guy was an ass kicker. That guy was one of our ass-kickingest presidents. Bald president. We're in need of a bald president. Shave it off, Biden. Or the next, come on, Kamala, shave it off.
Kamala, shave it off.
That's a bad example. But why not a bald president?
Well, we can all agree that bald is better than bad. You know what I mean?
Thank you. That drop.
And I agree. I don't know. I'm kind of.
Cory Booker was the closest we got over the last,
Yeah.
How many? 40 years?
I don't know. I think Biden is kind of a early gen hair plug guy, right?
Yep. And it shows now.
I think when you shave the head of a early gen hair plugs guy, I think you see some golf ball type action. I think.
Yeah.
I think. So we can't have that.
And if I can be self-serving, you know what else would have saved him and would have taken 4 seconds to put in? A yarmulke.
That would have solved this problem lickety-split. Probably would have got him shot before he made it to the car. but it would have solved the problem. It would have created
Gina,
a larger problem down the road.
That would not have been healing.
Yeah, I liked his address. I, of course, didn't like any of the white supremacist shit. I'm tired of it. It's insane. We can't talk about healing and white supremacy in this nation at the same time. It's interesting that we just all got on to racism and white supremacy, and that was it. Now it just is. We live in that nation, and we're going to somehow stop it, although we can't really stop it because it doesn't exist in numbers large enough to stop it. And so if you have a problem, and the problem is a big problem, you take something like COVID-19, then we can measure stopping COVID-19 because we'll go from 3,000 deaths a day to 2,000 deaths a day, and 5,000 cases in California to 4,000. It's chartable, it's measurable. Mm-hmm. When you start getting into white supremacy, then it's like, well, how do we chart it? How do we, and if we keep talking about it, it doesn't really matter what the numbers are, right, even though they're minuscule. We'll just keep turning something that is ostensibly nothing into something that's huge. I mean, if you think about the amount of airtime given to that subject versus how many actual people would fit into that category. Now, the other thing that you have to do is you have to broaden the category. So you have to broaden it to the point where many, many people can fit into it. But it still doesn't make them white supremacists. Yes, Brian or Gina.
I was going to say I agree with the earlier part 100%, where if you're Biden or the Biden administration, there's so much low-hanging fruit. You brought up COVID, which you can make a dent in materially, like, notably, as opposed to this nebulous idea, almost unprovable in a way, like you mentioned with the white supremacy, like who fits under that umbrella. Like, don't put that on the back burner, or accomplish something that's accomplishable. You know what I mean? Look, with COVID or something. You have so much low-hanging fruit. I agree. And it's also weird to talk about what a great nation we are and that we're chock full of white supremacists. Like, it doesn't, it's something that flies in the face. No great nation, any nation could be filled with a bunch of bigots, essentially.
You know what?
Yes.
But to answer your question, it's funny. How do we chart that? Well, ironically, since this was all happening at the White House, we charted, I would imagine one good way to chart it is by laws. And we don't have those disgusting segregationist laws anymore, or sundown counties, or horrible things that were written down and enforced. So I would say that that's a way to chart it. And it's probably a real leap in the right direction that those don't exist.
Well, it's like we have systemic racism, but none of the laws are racist, and then most of the laws are there to prevent that now. We have sort of, we're going the other direction. So I would argue, how are we systemically racist? But for some reason, that seems to titillate people, and the news outlets fucking love it. And they just run with it. Like, somehow I never thought we would be talking this much about race in 2021 ever, considering in 1991, we weren't really even talking about it. It was sort of, been there, done that, and turn the page. All right. Bill Maher. I did not see the first Bill Maher show real time, but I was told through a few people that he had a good clip, and I like Bill Maher. And Bill Maher is smart, and that I think we can all agree on this with Bill Maher, which is we don't agree on everything he says, but we do agree that he believes everything he says.
Yes.
And when I hear everyone calling everyone, saying we live in a white supremacist nation, I don't believe they believe it. That's the difference. If Bill Maher said that, I would believe that he believed it. I wouldn't believe that that's our nation, but I would believe that he believed it. And the way you do that is you kind of go back and forth with your subject matter and with your opinions. And you become an equal opportunist like a fender. And Bill's one of these guys who's been in California for a million years, and he gets into a subject, at least at the end of this clip, that's kind of near and dear to my heart, which is building and all the codes and everything, but it also reminds me of my own solar story as well. But at the top, he gets into something that we kind of got into a little bit yesterday, which is if you keep pushing people around, then it comes out in a festering, ugly way. So we'll play the clip from Real Time last week.
Yeah, so just a quick setup. He's talking about Ashley Babbitt at the top, who the woman who was killed at the Capitol. So her pool supply business took a short-term loan, and they were charged 169% interest. So that's what he's referring to when he went at the top.
And maybe, since all politics is local, all she knew was that she lives in a state that seems to care more about her toxic whiteness than her toxic brokenness. And that the state that's run entirely by Democrats? Yeah, they didn't stop anyone from charging her 169% interest on a loan either. It shouldn't be that surprising that America is full of fed-up, unhappy people who just want to break shit. Trump sure didn't drain any swamps, but when it comes to graft and corruption and everybody wetting his beak, California, yeah, that's a swamp too. We can't put up a housing unit for the homeless for less than $500 grand, or build a rail line connecting the state for less than $200 million a mile, even though in France, with all their socialism, they did it for more like 15 million. California is a blue state that is completely held together by red tape. It's no wonder people are leaving in droves. I am in year 4 of trying to get my solar power hooked up. Just building this shed up to code took 3 years. We'll all be getting our power from dilithium crystals before my solar gets turned on. How about this? Will you hook it up if I let the homeless live in it?
You know, Bill echoed something I've said for a million years, which is, you don't hate the government? Fine, you don't hate the government because you're living in a rent-controlled apartment in Santa Monica. Try building something. Try pulling a permit in California. Try asking them for permission to do a project, and then get back to me in a year and tell me what you think of big government. This regulation thing is something, you know, we talk a lot about taxes, and we talk a lot about immigration, and we talk about schooling and the haves and the have-nots. One of the biggest things that will fuck up a state is when it gets over-regulated. California is so heavily regulated that, yes, you don't get the housing built for the homeless because it's too much. And no, the jobs, you know, Elon Musk and company, they all leave. And when you talk to guys who run like fast food franchises and you go, would you open a franchise in Los Angeles? They laugh. They're like, fuck it, I don't got enough time. Or when your house burns down in Malibu because of a wildfire and you ask the person, you're going to rebuild? And they're like, no, Coastal Commission. I don't have 5 years to get my shit approved. Look, it can only, when the government is big, it can only go this way. This is the direction it goes. It goes into regulation. The question is do you want it bigger and do you want more regulation? And Bill is finding that out because I think Bill sat in his house and smoked pot for the first part of his life. And at some point he tried to build something. And when he tried to build something, that's when you turn into a guy who sounds like me, because I try to build shit all the time and you run into this. And the other thing you run into, what you create. So we're sort of talking yesterday that when the government's too big and they're too draconian with their laws and they lock it down too hard, you then get a group of people that do things you don't want them to do. Like they act out, they start rebelling. You know what you get in Los Angeles? Everyone tries to bootleg all their building shit. Oh, yeah. Because you're like, fuck it, I'm not going to go in with my checkbook down on my knees and deal with a year of planned approvals. I'm just going to fuck it. I'm going to try to sneak it past everyone. So now you have what you don't want as a city, which is a bunch of unpermitted bootleg structures going up everywhere, but no one wants to deal with it. Like I said, the most chilling words I heard from the inspector or from the building and safety office in Glendale after I was trying to build like a storage floor up in my in a warehouse, and the inspectors came in and busted me and told me I had to pull a permit and blah blah blah. When I went in and there was this like 27-year-old chick behind the counter, she's like, "What do you want to do with your warehouse?" And I said, first off, I don't know why they need to know, but I said,
it's none of your business.
I'm going to store some cars. I'm going to store some cars in it. And she went, "They might let you do that." They might let you do that. You who owns the property, you who pays the taxes.
Because you want a good day.
Jesus
this is
Christ.
insane.
Well, listen. California is basically last for people moving here and business. It's the worst business climate in the state, and it's because of the regulations. Like you've got to fucking peel it back. I don't know. I don't know why that's, why not make that a Democratic talking point? We're overregulated. We have to fucking peel it back. It shouldn't cost $550,000 a unit to build a 900 square foot apartment for a homeless person. We gotta fucking peel it back, but they never peel it back. They just sit around and think of new ways to regulate. And what they don't realize is people will just fucking leave. And guess where they go? They go to Texas. And when you talk to people who build in Texas, you go, "How's the permit process?" And they go, "Oh, it's fine. It's nothing, man. You can build if it's under X amount of square feet or whatever." Texas is unusually easy to build in. So if there's a state nearby and you're living in a state that's almost impossible to build in, and you'd like to build something, which is where you get your tax base and who creates the jobs, the builders, well, then, of course, you're just going to slide on over to a place that makes it easier for you to build in. All right. So, when Bill Maher's pissed off about California, that's
it's gone too far.
It's time.
But here's the question. Is anybody sitting around in the legislature or the governor's office or anything? Does anyone sit around and go, "Hey, we got to correct this ship. Like, we got to figure this out. People are leaving.
No.
We're going to lose our complete tax base. Like, we got to make it enticing. We have to do something. Like, we have to change a direction here and reel it in a little bit or offer some incentives or whatever. I wanted to put solar up in a house 10 years ago. And I said to the guy, "All right, we'll put the solar on and whatever." And he's like, "Well, you have a gate in front of your house." And I was like, "Okay, what's that mean?" He goes, "Well, you need a shutoff switch, like an emergency shutoff switch, which every other state in the union allows you to put on the electrical panel if there's a fire. And I don't know, the firemen don't want to be electrocuted, or whether you put a shutoff switch." I go, "Okay. But in California, it has to be outside of the gate. And your gate's 250 feet from where we're putting from the panel. And that means we're going to have to trench all the way from your gate to outside the gate to the panel. And it's going to be really expensive and time consuming." And then I said what Elon Musk said, which is, fuck it.
Right.
So you want me to get solar panels. You never stop talking about the environment, but how many people do you dissuade with the regulations? It's as if they don't
They exist to disincentivize.
Right, but it's as if they don't know that's how people are wired. Like when you give them a reason not to do something, they stop doing it. Don't get me started on Joel McHale in the swimming pool. All right, let me hit Simply Safe, and then we'll do Who the F Sells This S. Everyone wants to keep their home and family safe from break-ins, fire, flood, medical emergencies. Simply Safe Home Security award-winning 24/7 protection. Not only an arsenal of cameras and sensors, you get the best professional monitors in the business. They've got your back day and night ready to send police, fire, or EMTs. We love these guys. They've been with us for over a decade. We all use it here. Peel and stick, up and running in about 30 minutes. Then Simply Safe's professionals take over, monitoring your home 24/7, ready to send help at the moment there's an alarm. No long-term contract, hidden fees, or installation costs. And right now, our listeners get a free home security camera with the purchase of a Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/Adam. 60-day risk-free trial. Visit simplysafe.com/Adam for your free security camera today. All right, take a quick break. Come back. We'll do Who the F Sells This S right after this.
All right, we're calling the first person right now, so we'll bump in with a voicemail, and I'll put it up when we got it online.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Ace man, sitting here watching Cobra for the first time ever. I never realized how accurate everything you said about this movie was. Stallone is more over the top in this movie than when he was in Over the Top. Have a good one, guys. Mahalo.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Yeah, you got to watch Cobra. It has every good 80s cop trope in it. You know, we call him Cobra, and then 10 minutes in, his commanding officer yells, "Cabretti, get in the office!" Like that.
Demanding his badge.
That was a great one. He wanted to be on the case. They wanted him off the case. How much arguing for getting on the case do you think actually took place? You know, I feel like a lot of cops would be arguing to get off a case.
Right. Unless it was a really high-profile case, like I'm taking off the Zodiac killer case. Motherfucker, it's going to make my career. Like, otherwise, I don't think it's not arguing.
Yeah, and then also, is there that much leeway? Like, I know I work in parking enforcement, but I want on this Zodiac case now. You know what I mean? Like, I know
that's my collar.
I know all I do is maintain the fleet in the mechanics bay, but here's what I want. Yeah, so there's a lot of that. Then there's also the feds are coming in, and these feds come in, and there's always some history. They do that. They do that with T.J. Hooker. You know, the feds will come in and go, "Oh, Hooker, you're on this case," and then they'll go, "Boy, we don't stand a chance." And then they leave the room, and then the rookie cop will go, "What was that about, Hooker?" And then he'll explain some story that makes him sound like a hero. You know, I go, 9 years ago, some scumbag was abducting schoolgirls. I said to stake out the old church house. They instead wanted to stake out the basketball stadium, and 4 more girls died. And that, you know, but it was always him wanting to do something and them telling him that.
If they'd only
pushed back.
Yeah.
Right. If they'd only listen to him, which then, of course, is going to repeat itself in this episode. So now you got the feds coming in, and they want to run stuff, and they're telling them this isn't your collar. Then the hero, which either Bill Shatner or Cobra, then they have a theory. And Cobra's theory is these are multiple serial killers. It's not just one guy. And then
laughed out of the room.
They laughed out of the room.
Experts.
Yeah, Cabretti, why don't you let us handle this? And they laughed out of the room. Now, they don't really take into effect that when Cabretti came back to his apartment in Santa Monica, 11 people were shooting at him.
And the theory they float is never that insane, like worthy of being laughed. Like, it was multiple people. No, that could never happen.
Right.
Well, that's very likely.
We just had a car chase through the streets of Long Beach where there were 3 cars firing machine guns at me. Now,
that would be more than one.
It is statistically possible that 2 of those cars just joined in randomly to this, but highly unlikely. The other thing, too, is they never. So in these kinds of movies, Cabretti, you know, where they go, I think we have multiple suspects here. And they go, Cabretti, you don't know anything. We're dealing with one maniac here. One, I tell you. They go, I don't think so. But they never go, one. 5 cars were just fucking shooting at me while we're going down Shoreline Drive 20 minutes ago. How can that be one person? They never do that. They just go, I disagree. And then, why not offer up some evidence to support your point? And then if you said, well, when I did come home to my apartment, there were multiple people trying to attack me, then now it's in the court of the feds. They have to go, never considered that. Maybe there are
mirrors.
Right. It was also during a time when there were people just cult killings, like cults of killer people.
Oh, yeah.
It was also the time we were enamored with sliding motorcycles. So there'd be this whole thing where they'd come rumbling into town, like, oh, they're coming into town. All the homicidal killers are rolling into town.
The marauding group of
right.
Cult. You're basically describing Black Rain.
Right, and it's a dry day with not a cloud in the sky, and the sun is shining, and then all of a sudden, as they ride in, you'll see that the asphalt has been wetted down, and that's how you know Cobretti's going to shoot one, and he's going to do that motorcycle slide. It's kind of the move they used to do with horses, where they'd pull the reins off to one side, and the horse would. They do that move, and you'd see them all sliding out with their motorcycles. That was good. There was a hot chick they had to stash. That's always good, where there's a supermodel and they do that move where it's like the police chief's like, we got to get you into protective custody.
Yeah, she's a witness, even better.
Yeah.
And Cobretti's like, not safe for her in the precinct. We got to go up to a cabin with no electricity. It's like, she's going to be
no way to call for help.
She's going to be safer alone with you with no cell phone, just alone in a cabin. How in fact would that be safer than being here downtown in the middle of this fortress with police officers around? And then they always do this one. It's like, we got a bad cop, and we don't know which one it is. So she's got to get on the back of my motorcycle, and we got to go up to this cabin,
right? And
where there's no cell phones, and we'll just live there. Like somehow I will just, as a single person, protect her. And then they have the good part, where the evil chick who's in the cult is also working unclear. It's unclear if she's a phone operator or she works as a secretary at the precinct, but she's
on the inside.
She's like, all right, we're going up to the cabin. And then the phone operator chick who's in the killer cult is like, all right, Captain, I'll go with them. They're like, all right, Cheryl, you go too. And now she's like up there. Like, now they have an inside man at the cabin. But
that didn't help at all.
Why would she be dispatched to go with him? And then there's the fact that he has his revolver. No, he has his he has a 9mm or something. He's got his pistol with the mother of pearl handle on it, and he just keeps it stuffed into the front of his pants. It's just wedged. I don't even know if he's wearing underwear. Or a belt. He just like
shot it off.
He just wedges his piece into the front of his pants like Al Bundy or from Married with Children. That's how he wears his. Yeah, and then he just goes walking through the precinct, and his CO never goes like, "Hey, how many times we got to talk about this? You cannot take your pistol and just stuff it into your pants and walk around." Yeah.
You know what movie? Good movie. Both subverts and also has this trope is Terminator. In Terminator, remember Sarah Connor's like, they're like, you'll be safe here. You're in a police station. You're surrounded by 100 cops. And of course, Schwarzenegger as the Terminator comes in and fucking wastes them all. But then where does Michael Biehn take her? Off to the, not in the woods, but like to an isolated motel. Like,
right.
We'll be safe here. We're going to make bombs here.
I always find it always seems like a happy coincidence when the guy's like, it's unsafe in this police precinct because we got a bad cop. And they go, all right, Cobretti, where do you want to take the fashion model? To a cheap motel. It's like, really? Yeah, one of those places where the bed is the same size as the room. It's like,
fucking pay by the hour, be better.
Right. Well, don't you feel like there would be better and safer places that didn't have huge vibrating beds in them? Then, of course,
we'll take anything with a lobby, not something with an outdoor
right.
room.
But the thing that's always funny is the cop, because he's a good cop, never makes the first move.
No.
On the chick. The chick is
virtuous.
The chick is always intrigued. You know what I mean? She can't help herself, and she's got questions, about his job, and then she'll do a lot of like, aren't you scared putting yourself in danger all the time? And he'll just go, I'm a cop. That's what I do. Yeah. And she's like intrigued. And then at some point, he can't sleep, but she's supposed to sleep. He has to watch over her. But at some point, she wakes up and wants to blow him. Right. I just don't feel like that's how supermodels work. But
the real tipping point is when she gets something out of him. Like, didn't you ever work on the partner? One time.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean? And then I'll tell about the partner was, cut down in the line of duty.
Why he's
his
a
fault, of
wolf
course.
now. Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah. Well, the lead guy always kind of blames himself for the loss of the partner. All right, we got an intro for who the F sells this as.
When you're not trolling for prostitutes on Craigslist, you'll notice some crazy stuff for sale.
Knife block, perfect condition, but no knives. $1, cash only.
So it's time to answer the question, who the fuck sells this shit?
Yeah, this is something that I thought about for many years because I used to see my mom going through the back of the Penny Saver, the local newspaper, and I remember one time specifically, she was looking for a gardening spade, the miniature little shovel, the little handheld.
Yeah. The potting.
Yeah. If you go into any gardening section of any Home Depot or Lowe's, probably the least expensive item, maybe the least expensive item is gopher poison. And then the next is a gardening spade. Like, it's the cheapest new thing you can buy.
Right.
A 6-inch sub at Subway is more expensive than a gardening spade. And she wanted to find a used one and spent an entire afternoon, looking it up and calling people. This $4 item that she could get for $1.75. And I thought, this is not a good use of your time. All right, we'll do line 3.
Oh, good.
Ali, how do you say that? Caller?
Yes.
What's your name?
The name is Alan.
Alan. All right. Alan, what do you got for sale?
Well, I do have a pill splitter for sale.
A pill splitter.
A pill splitter. This is good. I have one of these. Very valuable.
I need one of these.
Oh.
Alan?
Yes.
How much is it?
It's a couple of dollars.
Oh, get the fuck out of here. Are you nuts?
Too much for my blood.
I get a new one for $2.75. This thing's got fentanyl all over it. Are you kidding me?
No, it's not the matter of the money. I can give it to somebody who can use it for free. It's not the money. But in the Craigslist, I think you got to put some money in order to be able to list it.
Okay.
Oh, I see. You got to give a price.
Now it's starting to make sense.
Yeah. Now you're a humanitarian. I don't do a lot of pill splitting, but I do have a zinc tablet, and Dr. Drew's like, just take half the tablet, and I just kind of bite it in half. I just kind of snap it. But it's not
We're staring at your solution.
It's not a science. You in Los Angeles, Alan?
Yes, I am.
Could you run it over to the shop? I got a crisp dollar bill waiting for you.
I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry.
If I buy this pill splitter from you, which I would like to do, how do I receive it? You put it in the mail?
No, actually, you should come and pick it up.
That makes sense. Because otherwise, the gas it would take to bring it to you, now he's breaking even.
All right. So I'm picturing a sprawling estate. Would you be in the library or the atrium when I show up?
No, actually, I can meet you guys like a gas station or somewhere, and I can give it to you. You don't even have to pay for it. I think it's just a matter of recycling. I hate to throw things in a trash can because it's a waste.
I love you.
This is a hero.
A man after your own heart.
But,
Thank you so much.
Alan, yes, I wish more Americans were like you. Can I ask this? Why are you done with your pill splitter? You're 78 years of age. I feel like you're on a new med every 10 minutes. Why are you done with your pill splitter?
Well, because I already have the other one, and this one came with the medication, and I'm not using it. I just hate throwing it in the trash can. Someone else can use it.
I agree.
Alan.
This country is wasteland. We throw everything out, including our wife and our husband and our children, and I hate that.
Wow. I'll tell you what, I'll trade you one of my kids for the pill splitter as long as we're not
Alan has
throwing
something
things
to get off
out.
his chest.
You know,
Yeah.
Alan, we're in the middle of a recall effort for the governor. I'd like you to consider throwing your hat in the ring and maybe leading the state and getting us all back to work.
I bet his hat is covered with fur. That's just me. Alan?
Yes.
I like your thought. Sorry about the divorce and the bitter custody battle that ensued. But
No, I know what I told you. What I'm saying, that in this country, people get rid of everything. It's just a wasteland. The consumer has been consumed.
I
We
listen.
do buy things when we really don't need it because
Welcome
of
to Alan's TED Talk.
advertisement.
I love Alan.
Alan, you are talking to an individual in Adam Carolla that brought a nickel-sized piece of steak and a dollop of mashed potatoes from Florida to Los Angeles after going out to dinner on the road when we were doing shows. I brought steak back from Florida. I brought steak back from Chicago. I fucking hate people throwing things away and how weird and cavalier everyone is about it. Containers, just half-eaten stuff, like just get away. And then there's this, because there's this stigma, and there's two stigmas. There's the gross stigma, and there's the cheap stigma. So if you drop something on the floor and people are like, oh, throw it out, I'm like, just get it, pick it up and wash it off and eat it. Oh, that's gross. That's gross. Or if you bring a doggy bag home from a different state, or if you want to say like, oh, that cheese got a little fur on it, just cut it off. Just cut it off. There's cheese under it. It's good.
You
Like,
can't
oh,
afford cheese?
so gross. And then the other side of it is, oh, you're so cheap. Oh, you're so cheap. It's like nobody who goes out to a steakhouse and pays $60 for a piece of meat is cheap, and they're not bringing home their steak because they're cheap. They don't want to throw things away. I'm with you. What country are you from, Alan?
I'm originally Persian. I've been here over 50 years, and I'm with you. Be in the same boat. I do fix things around the house because my children, they will look through everything else. As long as anything goes wrong with it, which is fixable, it could be done in a couple of minutes. They just toss it in the trash can, they order a new one, and I hate that. It is not fair, it's not right. Those stuff in the other countries, people can use them. And we threw everything out, and I hate that so much. I mean, it's in my blood. You know, there is nothing I can do about it. I try to fix things, put them back together, and use it again. And it's a good thing for the environment.
Listen. Here's an interesting yardstick, like a test. You know, you go, are you cheap? Do you want to reuse things? How do you feel about reusing things? Hold on a second, Alan. Here's an interesting thing. I just thought of this. I woke up. I came downstairs this morning, and I walked into the kitchen, and I saw a whole bunch of those red cups, those kind of party solo cups, a whole bunch of those red cups, and they were all capsized next to the sink. There were like 12 of them, and the reason they were there is because Olga is exactly like me. She's from a different land. Things have value. She doesn't like throwing shit away. My daughter had some sort of soda party in the backyard 3 days ago, and people are drinking Sprite out of them, and they're fine. And so Olga brings them in, and she cleans them off, and we're going to reuse them. And I'm exactly the same way. If I get the solo cup and I walk down to the beach and mess around a little, I just bring it back. I'll like rinse it out, just use it again. Is the solo cup a good yardstick to measure that mentality? Now, I'm not talking about being on vacation or something, or being out of your home or somewhere on 4th of July. I'm not talking about bringing it back to the house from Jimmy Kimmel's beach house or something. But the solo cup reuse inside your own home, if you had a few people over that watched a game, they use the solo cups, would you rinse them and get into it?
not only would I re-rinse them and don't know why you'd throw that away after using it once, but to further prove your point, this cup I've been drinking out of the last few days that you guys have been seeing, this is from when we went to the farmer's market over the weekend and got the little one a lemonade. And because it has a lid, to me, this is a good item, and I just keep refilling my water with it. So I'm with you 100%.
Solo cup, Brian.
No, I would not. I believe in recycling. However, speaking of the solo cup and the reusable cup, advice to everyone, people are all about straws these days. Don't get straws. They get in seals' noses, blah, blah, blah. Get paper straws. No, they disintegrate. Get yourself a set of stainless steel straws, just like your silverware. You can wash it just like your silverware. You can pop it in the dishwasher. Whatever you do with your forks, do with your straws, and you'll never have to be on the straw treadmill again.
Here's the thing, unfortunately, is every time I hear some expose on recycling, it turns out we're not so efficient with it.
Yeah.
Now
don't recycle.
Now I don't believe in it as much.
Right.
Hey, Alan.
Yes.
I am in love with you.
Thank you.
The question is do your children and wife appreciate you as much as we do?
No, actually, they don't. They against my philosophy. I mean, but that is their thought. This is the way I think. And to be honest with you, the older stuff, they last longer. They are better. They are better made. They are made in U.S. The newest stuff, the other plastic made in China, piece of trash, but it just looks better. We have two different philosophies. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
I always love to have the older. For instance, we had to change our refrigerator. And the guy who brought the new one, he said, this one that I'm bringing to your house is a piece of shit, excuse my language, to compare with what you're getting. But they make things that it doesn't last that long. So it's one way of cheating people. I do recall in old days, back home, we bought a refrigerator which was made in England. It's more than 50 years and it still is working.
Yeah.
You buy anything today, after a few years, you got to change it. You have to buy a new one. This is the way they are. Like I told you, the consumer has been consumed in this country, and we don't realize that.
I love the cut of
Alan,
your
are you
jib.
available to come back on?
Yeah, and hang on a second. Let's do a little role playing here, Bald Brian.
Let's do it.
I will play the guy who delivers refrigerators for the Lowe's in Burbank. You be my manager who's getting reports that I'm proclaiming that our refrigerators are pieces of shit as I drop them off.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Come in the office and close the door if you don't mind.
Yeah.
No,
is that a new watch?
It is, actually. That's funny you would notice that.
Is that a Panasonic?
Yeah, only the best, obviously.
Yeah, junk. Go ahead.
No, well, they make pretty good. Anyway,
I
got a call from a customer you delivered to. They mentioned you by name. As you were installing the fridge, you were, I don't know how better to put this, talking shit about the fridge.
Yeah. These guys had a Corian countertop, and I know we sell that stuff here at Lowe's, but God, that is a shit countertop, boy. I got to tell you what.
Okay,
now I'm thinking back on it, and I think he may have got his cabinetry from us too. Most of that shit's just out of China, made out of chipboard and covered with formaldehyde. So
okay, so it's true what the customer was saying.
Hey, you get a new desk in this office?
Yeah, actually.
Was that IKEA?
Yeah, I guess so. The guy came and installed
shit.
it. Oh, I mean, it's working out so far.
Hey.
Anyway, we're getting off subject here. It really benefits the company if you reinforce to the customer that they've, in fact, purchased a good, durable, long-lasting product.
Yeah. You know what was a long-lasting product? Norge. Now, that was a fucking product. Made in the USA.
Sounds like an IKEA bookshelf, to be honest.
Norge, back when Chicago used to manufacture shit. Wasn't all traded out to Mexico or some third world nation.
Yeah, that all takes place 4 or 5 levels above me. I'm just the manager of the store, and frankly, consumer confidence is down.
Are those new K-Swiss you're wearing?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for noticing.
Shit. It's a shit shoe.
Well,
Yeah.
I find them quite comfortable. Actually, they got great art.
Look,
support.
I'd like to talk, but I got to go drop off some more durable goods. I got more appliances. I got a refrigerator piece of shit to drop off. I got a dishwasher shit box to drop off. I got a fucking trash compactor, fucking pile of shit. I should shit in that thing, compact my fucking shit trash compactor. I got a coffee maker to fucking Mr. Coffee, my ass, Mr. Shit. That's what they fucking call that thing. I got to drop that shit.
Sounds like you have a full day of deliveries.
I didn't even get to the microwaves. Fucking Panasonic piece of shit. Same retards that made your watch.
If you could please leave your personal opinions of the products out and just install the products, that's really what the customer is looking for.
Is that a picture of your wife on your desk?
Oh, yeah, there's Shirley right there.
Yeah, piece of shit. Hey, this was
I hope we're talking about the frame.
This was a good talk, but I got to take a shit. So can we pick this up tomorrow?
Why do I keep this guy employed?
And by the way, do we have to drive Dodge trucks? Jesus Christ, what pieces of shit.
Again, many levels above me. Make that decision.
All right. We lost all our other calls, but all we ever needed was Alan.
Worth it.
Alan?
Yes.
What business you in?
Well, I used to be in the movie business. I'm retired now.
What'd you do? Leading man?
I'm working with the camera.
Camera. You don't throw those bad boys out. And Alan, where are you in Los Angeles?
I'm in San Fernando Valley.
Ooh, whereabouts? I grew up out there.
Local boy.
In Tarzana.
Tarzana.
Oh, lovely Tarzana.
You have reliable transportation?
Yeah, I have Toyota Camry. It's more than 10 years old. It works like a Rolls Royce, and there is nothing wrong with it. But my daughter keep asking me, toss it in the trash can, I buy you a new one. I said, no, I'm pretty good with this. Actually, that's one of the most popular car on the road to compare all the brand new car these people buy, and every 2 years they change them.
I want this pill cutter. I also want to shake your hand. I also want to give you a crisp $50 bill, Alan. So I'm going to put you on hold, and we'll work this out maybe for tomorrow. But I think we got to get you in studio. We got to talk a little more of your general philosophy of life, because I'm so down with this. And basically, Alan is the Persian Adam, because this is all I do is I walk around going, don't throw that out. What are you doing? Yeah. No, you can't. And it's just, think about, especially since COVID, think about all the packaging and all the shit that's just getting wiped down and thrown out.
3 rounds of recycling just to get rid of the boxes that we had from, the holidays. And I broke them down, cut them up and flattened them.
Too.
Wouldn't it, in all our concerted efforts and all the third-hand smoke warnings and click it or ticket, wouldn't it be nice if we could just kind of start instilling this, like get hold of kids when they're younger and start explaining to them, like, hey, if you're writing on a piece of paper, when you're done with it, then write on the back of that piece of paper if it's a scratch
it's like you live here.
I have these buck slips. I would never live in a place that small, Gina. But I understand what you meant. I just want to be clear. In case there's confusion.
I still have the scores from the Rotten Tomatoes game that I probably won, so I can use the back.
I go over all my buck slips and I write an X over the side I use, and then I just flip them over. It's something that needs to be instilled. We live in a society that is now constructed to fight against all that stuff. It used to be something that was just there, partly out of necessity, but just partly out of that's what you did as an adult. And we're in a complete throwaway culture now. And it's got to have a residue, like a psychological residue, because think about it symbolically. You are just willing to throw away everything. It was funny. Alan said, throw away marriage, throw away children, But think about that. Like, if you were just so willing to toss anything, like, the appliance breaks, throw it out. It costs more to fix it. Go get a new one. Well, eventually somebody says something and you go, just cancel that guy, like throw him away, get rid of him. You know what I mean? Like it's got to kind of permeate your world.
I think you're right. I think that's obviously where we're at. But I told you about this Buy Nothing group that I'm obsessed with, and that it's like sweeping the nation and all this stuff and upcycling, finding furniture on the corner and reupholstering it. I think there is a movement counteracting that, because I think it just doesn't, it's not like, you're better or worse. It's so icky. You're not comfortable with it anymore. And you feel so much better when you give something away. And a lot of the stuff on Buy Nothing, it's like, a printer, it's missing a wire. If you can figure it out, you're welcome to it. So there's a lot of that trading happening now that's becoming a little more normal.
Well, good. And I have always said the more safe spaces we create, the more octagons will be built. And This is it. The more people that throw everything away, the more it'll give birth to these other kinds of movements. All right. Jerry Springer is in the waiting room. We'll talk to him in a second. First, I'll tell you about Geico. Do you own? Do you rent? Well, you do one or the other. You want a bundle? It'll make it easy with your policies. You can do that with your homeowners or your renters insurance, and do it with your automotive policy. Go to Geico. And you go to geico.com, you get a quote, see just how much you could save and how fast you could do it. Very easy at Geico. Geico.com, get the bundle in and start saving. One of our favorites, Jerry Springer, is in the waiting room, and we'll talk to him right after this.
The Adam Carolla Show presents Jerry Springer's birthday cocktail party for February 13th. Let's see who's on the guest list. Former First Lady Bess Truman, American test pilot Chuck Yeager, actress Kim Novak, from the Monkees Peter Tork, and the guy who shocked the monkey Peter Gabriel, Henry Rollins, and Michael Jackson Jr. Jerry Springer on the Adam Carolla Show.
Good to see you again, my friend.
Well, it's good to see you, and I didn't realize all those people were coming to. I don't think Bess Truman will come.
Well, those are just people who are born on your birthday. So
yeah. Also, there's another one, because they always put it in the newspaper, today's birthdays. Mm-hmm. So every year. But what's funny is some of the people that are well known, year after year, they keep getting younger. I won't mention the person's name, but she was working with our company, and she was pretty famous, and she kept getting younger. And we would always say, wow.
I know.
It's a medical marvel.
That's what happens to Gina.
It's one thing to look younger.
That's true.
Be younger.
Jerry's show, the TV show, Judge Jerry, and you can go to judgejerry.com for local listings, and the podcast, the Jerry Springer Podcast, new episodes every week on Apple Podcasts. Where are you living, Jerry?
Our home is Sarasota. We have a place in Chicago or outside Chicago, but our real home is Sarasota, Florida.
Jerry Springer Show was shot in Chicago all those years, right?
Well, for most of the years, for 20 of the years, but for the last 7, they've been in Stamford, Connecticut. And now Judge Jerry is done in the Stamford, Connecticut as well.
Is there now all those years Oprah was in Chicago, right?
Right.
And then I think I've done other TV shows. I'm trying to think of like
Jenny Jones in Chicago?
Yeah, Jenny Jones.
Yeah. Well, Jenny Jones was in our studio, same building, the NBC Tower.
Right.
So she did it. Then later on, Steve Wilkos and and my show, of course. Yeah.
Is there some Chicago connection that I'm not putting together? I mean, most stuff is New York or L.A. How did Chicago become Chicago that way?
Well, because the networks have O&Os, own stations.
Mm-hmm.
They each network is, I think, allowed to own 5 particular local TV stations, and it's always New York, Chicago, and L.A. So I guess for the middle of the country, it just became you really get ethnic diversity there. In other words, you can get a cross section of America outside of all 3 of these cities. So that's how Chicago became pretty big. Phil Donahue was from there.
There you go. Is Phil Donahue alive?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't know. The COVID thing has screwed me up with deaths. I was surprised that Roy of Siegfried and Roy had died 8 months ago. I did totally miss that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that? Did I screw that up?
No,
Or-
that's right. Did we not speak? I might be losing it, but didn't we speak to Phil and his lovely wife not too long ago?
Oh, they put it on your radio show, Gina.
Yeah, I think that was your radio show.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Springer Show from 91 to 2018 aired 28 seasons. Is that correct? Over
Yeah, there's no
4,000 episodes?
Yeah, there's no excuse for that. I mean, it's one of those timeless shows. In other words, you could watch any year, and other than the fact that I start looking different because I'm getting older, the subject matter is timeless. So you could have had that show 2,000 years ago, and it would be the same subject matter. And so as long as you have television, you can have talk shows. And as long as you have talk shows, you could have talk shows with craziness. So that's why it's timeless.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot recently about people and their sort of persona versus like who they really are. At the top of the show, I've sort of talking about there's a version of Jerry Springer that I think America knows. But when you talk to Jerry Springer, you interview him, and I had you on Take a Knee, my motivational podcast. You get to know the backstory. You immediately become human and more nuanced and all that. But it's also weird because when you're living in your skin, it's kind of hard to figure or feel what other people think. Like, I realize a lot of people think I'm a douchebag. Not that they think you're a douchebag, but what I'm saying is,
they do. They do. Yes.
Yes. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I think the trick is, if there's a trick to it or circumstance is, I got to be well known as a grown-up. Mm-hmm. And so therefore I was better able to put things in perspective. I think one of the things that keep you stable and recognize that there's the persona out there that is your job, it's showbiz, but you don't take the praise and you don't take the criticism personally because they're reacting to what they see on the screen. So if someone, when you go by and people going, Jerry, and they're saying such nice things about me, I'm appreciative, obviously. But it's not like I go home at night and say, gee, I must be wonderful because they're chanting my name. In other words, as a grown-up, you're able to say, they're cheering me when I come up to bat, but they don't know my own life. And I think that's important. It keeps you stable. You never get too high or too low. I always viewed the show as it was a fun way to make a living. I don't make apologies for that. I loved every moment of it. But I never thought it was a significant show in terms of raising the public consciousness. It was just chewing gum. It was stupid.
Yeah, I think if you have success a little later on in life, then the cement is sort of dry in your brain, and you can't pick up a stick, or society can't pick up a stick and put its initials in it, And maybe this is why child stars are so screwed up. It's what they know. Like, if you live a life, I always tell people I could never be different because I had so many years as just a knock-around civilian kind of guy that even when I got famous, it never changed anything because I was set. I was who I was. When you're malleable when you're young, then that just becomes who you are. How old were you when you first started having success?
Well, my success came in politics.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I was mayor of Cincinnati and city councilman at 25. So, my first jobs, I started out as a lawyer, but my first jobs were serious jobs. And so when you have those responsibilities, I didn't get a talk show. And then I was a news anchor for 10 years. I didn't get a talk show until I was 48 years old. And so I had already had a not a famous life, but certainly a successful life in terms of being a mayor and being a news anchor and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of was set in my ways for who I was. Just what you said, I think that was right on point. I think that's why so many teen stars run into trouble early. You know, I don't think it's very hard to have fame when you're 18 years old and the center part of your brain hasn't, you know, settled in yet.
Right.
And you can't, you know, you start believing everything that's said for you. You think you're entitled and you're swamped with fans and people around you that just want to say, yes, 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 yes. Well, when you're a grown up, when you've had a life already, then I think it has less impact either way, good or bad.
What years were you mayor of Cincinnati?
77 and 78.
Oh, that's interesting because that was right about WKRP in Cincinnati, right?
Yes. The first year I had a walk-on.
Oh, really?
It was in the introduction of the show when you saw this guy coming out of the reason I had it is because they came to film an episode in Cincinnati for promotional value. And I was the mayor at the time. So if they wanted a key to the city, hey, you got to put me in. You know, no, it didn't happen like that. But so I had a walk-on appearance on that show. So yeah, that helped put Cincinnati on the map along with the Big Red Machine.
I was going to say.
Sure.
The Cincinnati Reds. That was right during the heart of it all. So Cincinnati got very much into the public consciousness.
Didn't Joe Morgan just pass away like a month ago?
Yeah, several months ago. Yeah. We lost a lot of phenomenal Hall of Fame ball players just within the last year. You know, Tom Seaver, Joe Morgan. Right. Yeah, Joe Morgan, Bob Gibson, Whitey Ford.
Don Sutton just died a day or two ago, I think we were talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So there was controversy when you were a mayor. Can we talk about that story?
Sure. Oh, no, wait a second. No, it was 4 years before I ever became mayor.
Oh, it was before you became mayor.
Yeah.
Well, tell us that story.
Well, I'll tell it very quickly because I don't want to harp on it. It was 50 years ago. But I went to a massage parlor, and you know, I stayed longer than I should have stayed, and that was wrong. And back then, it became a big issue, and it was wrong what I did. And I just told the public immediately what I had done. But then 4 years later, I was elected mayor. So my whole career, in terms of politics, and then 10 years as a news anchor, and then the 27 years on the show and other stuff, that all came later. So, you know, it was clear that when you're young, you don't make real smart decisions, and I certainly didn't. So that was wrong. But
you said were you mayor at 25? Did you say?
I was mayor I was elected to city council at 25. I became mayor when I was 32.
So still pretty damn young for mayor of a major city, right?
Well, at the time, Adam, the day I was elected, there were two other quote, boy mayors elected in Ohio. Cleveland had, the day I was elected mayor of Cincinnati, in Cleveland, Ohio, Dennis Kucinich was elected mayor. And in Toledo, Ohio, Doug DeGood was elected mayor. So I was on the, I think it was the Dinah Shore show or the Tonight, one of those two shows. And they asked me about, you know, what's this with the young mayors? And I said they referred to Dennis Kucinich, myself, and Doug DeGood as the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because, well, yeah, you know, I had to walk into that. But no, because Dennis had, you know, they had recalled him in Cleveland because they couldn't clear the snow away. And so there were big controversy. I mean, Ohio was shut down for a couple. Ohio always seems to get in the headlines.
Did with when you're mayor? All right, I won't harp on this too long, but
yes, you would
a little bit. But but the controversy was they found a check or something like that from this massage parlor.
They didn't find it. I used it. It was presented as evidence that because there was a case against someone else who was running the club. And so that was used as evidence that was happening. That's what I presented.
And so they found your name, and then they found you. And then what happened after that?
Well, I had held a press conference and said I was resigning from council, but no one knew then why I was. And the next day, I held a press conference. The next day, I held the press conference, and that's when I told what I had done. It was wrong, and it was stupid, and
well,
but you know what?
Maybe it was stupid, but I don't know about wrong. I mean, let's have a general discussion about this for a second.
Let's talk today. Hey, time out. Today is a significant day in history. We just got rid of Trump and elected the first African-American woman as vice president. We've got Biden as president. We've just been through an attack on America, on our democracy. Let's talk more about that. I mean,
all right, let's get back to the orchids of Asia. And then we'll.
Yeah.
No, I agree. No, I agree with all that you say. I'm just saying, I just got done watching the whole Tiger Woods thing. We were talking in the past about Robert Kraft and his Orchids of Asia thing. Considering look, it's a psychological experiment. I'm not going to roast Jerry Springer, but what I'm saying is human beings are sexual by nature. That's why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, perfume and makeup and hair and tight clothing and everything from that end of it to pornography being $1 billion. That's who we are. That's who we are. Why do we have to pretend like we aren't that? And then why are we so uptight about it? Like every male I've ever met says, I want to get laid. That's what they say. Then Bob Kraft goes to the Orchids of Asia, and we gotta take him out to the woodshed for a public flogging, or Tiger Woods has mistresses. Why are we fighting this? Are we overcompensating? Like, why can't we just sort of sign off on it? Like, I don't know, maybe they do in some Nordic cultures or something, or in Sweden.
At this point, it's pretty simple. At this, the immorality of it is the dishonesty of it. In other words, if society sets norms, which doesn't mean you have to agree with every norm out there, but society functions because most people over the years have decided that certain ways of behaving are appropriate and others aren't. And so that's it. I don't have to get into an argument. I accept the fact that even though, you can look back and say, oh, it was 50 years ago, and oh, I was young and all that. Oh, that beside the point. It was wrong whenever I did it because society says it's wrong. And I understand that that's the rules they made. If I had grown up in a society which said, go ahead, there is no, everything's illegal, prostitution's legal, this and the other, that's different. But if I have to find a cause to fight for in this world, freeing that up is not going to be my cause. Racism will be a cause. Getting out of Vietnam was a cause. There are certain things that are worth fighting about. And this is just say, hey, behave yourself. I should have behaved myself. I knew what the rules were. I didn't obey the rule. And therefore, if I suffered at any moment, then I should have suffered. Thankfully, my life has been wonderful since. And there we go. But I.
All right. I concur. I'm curious. I don't know how the mayor's day works. I'm kind of curious about this. We have a mayor, Garcetti, in Los Angeles. I fucking hate that guy because I have no idea what he does all day. All I know is we have more and more homeless, and I don't hear anything about COVID-19 protocols or timelines or schools being opened or anything of that nature, outdoor dining, whatever. We're completely locked down. I'm always kind of curious, like, what is he doing all day? Like, what is being put in front of him? What is he deciding on? What's he being briefed on? Like, when you were the mayor of Cincinnati, what was just a typical day for you?
Well, I can't speak about your mayor. That wouldn't be fair. I don't know his specific day. I can tell you generally, and I certainly can tell you what my days were like, and every mayor I've known, except for President of the United States, I will argue that being mayor is the most hands-on, full-time, never a moment's rest of any political job in America. And the reason I say that is when you're mayor, you deal with every issue as it affects the person living down the street. They can pass policy in Washington, they can pass policy in Sacramento for you, but when it comes to the city, so does your garbage get picked up? What about the police service? What about the fire service? What about the schools? What about the waterworks? What if the transportation? We own the transit system. So every day, whether it was a union issue, whether it was something with the water, the quality of the water, the bus drivers go out on strike, the schools, the teachers are out on strike. And the scariest thing, at least in the 1970s, and maybe it's now too, but the scariest thing for me was I never knew what would happen if there was a riot. Would I, the responsibility of having to call out the National Guard. And here I am, a 32-year-old kid, basically. And that's scary. I have never had a job close to the concentration that being a mayor requires. So I'm not saying every mayor does a great job, of course not. But I don't believe, you could probably skate through being governor because you're at such a distance, you're still basically dealing with policy. But the actual delivery of issues is all local. And you got a local council where the local councilmen are giving you trouble probably because they're all thinking one day they want to be mayor. They have to please their constituents. They can't just come into town right before an election. They know where you live. They know where your home is. And if your traffic light isn't working or if your school is shut down, they're coming to your house. It's a really, really hands-on job. And I've always said that next to being president of the United States, the biggest worrying job is being mayor of a major city.
Well, did you have designs on moving ahead in politics when you were at that stage? Were you thinking about moving on to the federal level, or what were your thoughts? I'm reading here that you were political campaign advisor for Robert F. Kennedy.
Well, what I knew going in is having been born in England, I could never be president. So there was always a limit. It wasn't like, I looked in the mirror and said, man, there's no end to this career. It's just going to go, go, go. But I did try out being governor. In 1982, I went from mayor to running for governor of Ohio. And when I didn't win that election, then I was hired literally the next week, within the next week by NBC to anchor their news for 10 years in Cincinnati. But I did figure that I kind of knew in my mind that my politics was going to be separate to how I made a living. I always viewed politics kind of like my religion. It's something I take very seriously. And yet, if you have to make a living in politics, you're eventually going to be intellectually dishonest. Because if how you put food on the table is winning the next election, think about it. You start compromising. You start talking yourself into voting a certain way because you can't afford to lose a job when you're 50. Who's going to hire you? So you do everything to be reelected, and therefore you start compromising your values. So I was still young. I thought, well, I'm going to go for it for governor. I got beaten by a excellent guy who was a better choice than me, to be honest, Dick Celeste. And but I thought I'd give it one shot and see if my liberalism would work. And it didn't. I wasn't well enough known in the rest of the state, but they made a good choice. The public voted for Dick Celeste, And that was the last political job, I had. I thought about it the other times, but I never actually pulled the trigger to run.
Let's talk Judge Jerry for a few. Grilled you enough about hanging out at the massage
No, I'm pretty
parlor.
good on the stand, aren't I?
Yeah, well,
very good.
There's an interesting thing because I've always everyone always says to me, you should do one of those judge shows too, and I realize that I don't have your legal background, but I do realize I hosted a syndicated talk show called Loveline for a decade, and
that's where I first know you from. Sure.
When you talk to people all night, you get a real good idea of like who's lying and who's not and who the victim is. And, when the teen, it's like all night, there'd be this 16-year-old girl and she'd go, my stepdad's unreasonable. The curfew's 11 o'clock on a Saturday. And then you'd start asking questions and inevitably she'd tell you that she got pulled over for drunk driving. And then you'd have to get out that's the reason, he wants you home by or whatever. But when you just talk to people who are having conflicts, you get a real good sense of fairness, I think. And doing the Jerry Springer show for all those years with all those people and all those groups and all those battles, do you feel like that strengthened that muscle for you?
Sure. There's no question. But I also think being a father and being a grandfather, that's how I look at every case, particularly when they're young people. And next to me, they're all going to be young that come before me. So what I do is if, sometimes your own kid or grandkid would have to be disciplined, but you don't do it out of meanness. You don't just yell at them and say, you idiot, and this, that, and the other. In other words, you try and explain to them why, there's a consequence for what you did. And I'm not judging you here and saying you're a bad human being. You're not. But in this behavior, we can't permit it because if we say it's okay if you do it, then someone else is going to do it to someone you love or someone you know. And I think if in a mindset, if you approach it that way, it really isn't that difficult. There is no way if you have kids that you would be unfair to your own kid. You would still have to discipline them. But in the back of your mind, there's nothing but love and kindness, and you want the kid to be good. You don't want the kid to be hurt. Unless you have a real mental issue, no one wants to hurt their child. So, and I that's how I kind of viewed it. I'm not a disciplinarian as a judge, but I do think I talk to them as I would talk to someone I love, a youngster that I love, that this is, this is what you ought to be doing. And that's what I'm comfortable with. I can't be yelling. It's just stupid. People would laugh. I would laugh at myself. I just don't yell. And the strangest thing is, which no one believes, is I don't curse. And it's funny. With all the years, you can watch every single show of the 4,000, and you will never find me cursing. I just don't do it. And there's no cursing in my house. And I just don't do it. And it's funny because during the old show, and even now in the court show, in the old show, people would be grappling, fighting in a Jello, in a vat of Jello, and all of a sudden they would use the F word, and they would stop in the middle of the fight because they've been told by producers, and they'd stop, look at me, say, "Oh, sorry, Jerry," and then they'd go on beating the hell out of each other. So it's like, and that's, so I can't be really screaming or yelling and I know that's good television to do that, but I can't do that as a judge.
What, on the Jerry Springer show, do you remember some moments where you were scared for your safety? Do you remember moments where you said, I'm not going to have this individual on the show or this group on the show? Is there, in 4,000 episodes, there must be some instances of that.
I enjoy that question. It raises, there's one that clearly sticks out. First of all, the rules on our show were, one, I wasn't allowed to know what the show was about. So it always had to be a surprise to me.
You and Charles Grodin. It's a reference to his bad talk show, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, because the idea was that they would start out telling me their story. That's why every segment I start out by introducing the guest and then saying, what's going on? That's always my first question. And they start with their story. And then I'm supposed to ask questions that you would ask sitting at home watching. And then make jokes. I was supposed to come up with some funny stuff during the course of the show. Sometimes I was able to, sometimes I wasn't, but that was the idea, and keep the show moving. But because if I already knew what they were going to say, then it would look ridiculously fake. My reactions, I'm not an actor. My reactions would be, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, so it's better to just have the normal kind of reaction to it. Lost my train of thought. Give me a question again. What was it?
What were you ever scared? Or what is the most scared you were?
One day, and the other rule, right? The first rule was I couldn't know what it was about. And the second rule was we weren't allowed to have any censorship.
All right, so hold on. Every one of those episodes, you would just start cold. You had
absolutely
no idea what the subject was.
That doesn't make me wonderful. That actually it's easier.
Yeah, I agree. It's organic.
Less prep. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then because then I'm natural. Then I'm just, if I were watching the show, I say, you did what?
Right.
So, okay. And the other rule was there couldn't be any censorship. And because the show was about outrageous behavior. Well, and that's why you couldn't be on the show unless you did something which was dysfunctional or out of the ordinary, whatever. We had this one guy on who was anti-Semitic and raising his children to be Nazis. And I had lost my family in the Holocaust. So, and he referred to me, he was sitting there on stage and he said, he kept referring to me as you, quote, hook-nosed Jew blank. And so I knew he was trying to get me. So I did, the audience went crazy, but I just let it slide. He's going to try to insult me and I'm not going to. Well, at one point he says, if I had your mother, I would turn her into the lampshade and stuff her into the trunk of my car. And that, I lost it. So I go up on stage and he's sitting in his chair and I'm sticking my finger close to his face and said, that time I did curse. And he stands up. He's 6'4", 6'5". This is not going to end well. Security jumps on stage, throws him down on the ground. And once he's on the ground, I'm going, come on. They're all sitting on him. So, that kind of worked out. But that's the only time I was frightened for a moment because I didn't know how many of his buddies were, in the audience or whatever. But other than that, think about it. No one, if you come to that show, you're coming because you're a fan.
Right.
If that show offends you, you're not going to want a ticket to it. So I never really had to be, we got all the security. No, I was never frightened. No.
Were you hard on yourself? Sorry, Gina, just to follow up to this. Were you hard on yourself for losing your composure? Or did you forgive yourself because of the heinous statement the guy made?
It was complex. I mean, it was my natural reaction, but I realized it wasn't professional. And then I remember talking to the staff after the show because they were all kind of apologizing, saying we should have been sensitive. Why'd we put him on? And I said, no, you did absolutely the right thing because this show is about censorship, about having no censorship. So I can't suddenly say, well, if it offends other people, it's okay. But if there's something that offends me, you can't put it on the show. I said, no, you did absolutely the right thing. I should have been more professional and I should have been. But in terms of morally, did I feel I was wrong? No, it was a normal human reaction so that's how I dealt with it. But I didn't lose sleep over it. It was just a momentary reaction, which I should have controlled.
Last question for with Gina Grad. Go ahead, Gina.
Oh, yeah. In terms of follow up, I was thinking the same thing. That was a really interesting and horrible story, and I'm sure I saw it. But I'm wondering, this was about, did you ever feel unsafe in studio? I was always very curious about your safety outside the studio. In terms of your home life, this was a lot before, there was no Twitter, and which was probably maybe helpful, maybe not. But I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Well, this sounds unbelievable, even as I say it, but it is true. In the 27 years of doing what was, for most of those years, a very controversial show. By the last 5 or 6 years, it wasn't controversial anymore. People were used to it because we had social media. There were many more crazy things going on social media than ever on our show. But in the beginning, it was controversial. Never, except one time, did anyone ever come up to me in public and say anything nasty. If they don't like your show, it's not like politics. Politics, people can get angry at you.
And like you said, they know where you live.
Yeah, but if they don't like your show, they don't watch it. They don't lose sleep over it. No one's going to sleep at night saying, "Oh, can't believe what Jerry said to that guest." So it never. And by the way, this explanation only came years later when I thought about how come, when you read the articles in the newspaper and, oh, that's the worst show, TV Guide voted us the worst show in the history of television.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, thank you. And I kept thinking, yeah, they did. It was the 50th anniversary of TV Guide. And they had people vote on the 50 worst shows in television. And we were number one. And I kept thinking, wouldn't it have been awful to be number two? Yes. No one remembered you. And you obviously have had a horrible show, but there's no plaque, there's no award. So we got number one.
I do think we spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about how dangerous the country is or how bad the country is or how bad the people are. But generally, most people are pretty decent. I mean, you were an exceedingly recognizable person. I mean, everyone knew who you were. You probably went into many establishments to eat dinner while people were in there drinking and having a good time. It could have easily turned into something, and it didn't. I have a friend who lost a wallet, like a pocketbook, at an airport recently, or maybe at an airport, and it didn't have anything in it but like cash and some gift certificates, and they turned it in. Like it got turned in. Somebody picked it up, saw there was cash in it, and I always say criminals don't find your wallet. Travelers find your wallet, moms and dads and people, business people and stuff like that. Like
that's a good line.
We never. It's if criminals break in your house and steal your wallet, they don't go to the airport and stare at the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish
low
more,
yield.
I wish more criminals. I wish more. Yes, it's hard to pay the bills as a criminal when that's your that's your plan.
How'd it go today, honey? No wallets.
No, just a bunch of terrazzo flooring. That was it. And I spent more at the Starbucks than I did than I found. But I do think it's a good time to point out that most people want to get along. Most people are pretty decent. You drop your wallet somewhere, it'll get turned in 9 times out of 10. Let me give a plug to Jerry before we bid him adieu. That's Judge Jerry. Go to judgejerry.com for your local listings and the podcast, the Jerry Springer Podcast. New episodes every week on Apple Podcasts, the website, jerryspringer.com. Good to speak to you again, my friend.
It's always good talking with you.
We'll
keep it up.
Have you back anytime you like.
Yeah. You're number one in podcasts, so good for you. Keep it up.
It's better than being number one in dry cleaning, I guess.
Yeah, or the worst show in the history of television. There you go.
Yeah. What year was that, did you say?
I'd say about 6 years ago.
Oh,
7
see.
years ago. Yeah.
I wish my grandmother was still alive because she would have argued. I think the Man Show was probably the worst. And then I would have went, well, they voted. And she goes, I know, but I voted in my heart. Jerry Springer, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let me hit Liquid IV. I love this stuff. I use it all the time. I travel with it. They have the energy multiplier, which is a game changer. One stick is like drinking 2 cups of coffee. All natural alternative to processed energy drinks. And, you know, a lot of people drinking a lot of that stuff. It's got a lot of calories in it and a lot of artificial stuff in it. Half of Americans struggle with the daily fatigue, lack of motivation, poor mood, decreased focus. The Liquid IV energy multiplier, you feel it when you drink it. I can, at least. Clean ingredients, I like the lemon lime flavor myself. Non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy and soy-free as well. Extremely convenient packaging. Like I said, I always travel with it. It's Liquid IV, right, Dawson?
Grab your energy Liquid IV. Grab your energy Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code ADAM at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you use promo code ADAM at liquidiv.com. Start fueling your adventures today at liquidiv.com, promo code ADAM.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back with the news right after this.
Give me the news with Grad, news with Gina Grad. Breaking, viral, weird crime, protest, politics. Give me news with Gina Grad. Stuff they saw on TMZ. Joe Biden, Kamala. Meet news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
Oh, that's right. We need a new opening. Forgot about
I kind of want to hear that again. I missed
I think we'll hear it again on inauguration day.
I like Kamala.
I was processing it, and it was sort of like when you'd buy back in the day. You'd buy like hits from Motown from the car wash. It'd be a cassette, and you'd go, "Oh, I love this Spinner song," and you put it in, and it took a second. Like you'd be like, "It sounds different than."
Yeah.
It's kind of like when they put. It's like when they use American cheese in your enchilada.
Oh, sure.
It's not the first bite. It's like the third bite. The first, it's just all enchilada. Yeah, and then you have to start that. I heard the first 10 seconds, or the first 2 seconds. I was like, huh? And then now we know. All right, Gina Grad.
That just reminds me. That's my third news song since my tenure, which means I've been here through 3 presidencies, which is pretty cool. So thank you for that. There was the inauguration. The Trump family did not attend. They all went down to Florida. And it seems like they're going to join Mr. Springer down there because Trump's already officially a Floridian. And the kids are all moving down there. Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle are house hunting in Palm Beach. Ivanka and Jared just bought property in Miami. Tiffany's looking for property in Miami Beach. So that's where they will be. But I did just pull a couple clips from the star-studded singing from the inauguration today, because anything else you either care about it or you don't. You already watched it or you didn't. First, we have Lady Gaga singing the national anthem in that ornate costume, and here's the tail end of that.
She's such a talent. It's weird that she got into so much weird stuff as just a talent. You know, she's such a raw talent. Most of the time, you know, there's a reason the band Devo wore stupid outfits and those stupid fucking slinky hats because they weren't probably great musicians, songwriters, or whatever. So normally when there's a hook or there's something,
a gimmick,
something, but
Madonna is the ultimate example of this.
Yes,
there's a reason you wear a cone bra.
You're right.
Oh, Brian, we just lost all of our gay fans.
Yes.
I think even the gay fans would acknowledge that Madonna isn't brimming with musical talent. Though she's incredible.
he doesn't mean it.
But she's a great entertainer and she's a brilliant marketer and she has talent in those arenas. But you can't put if like Adam's example, if you squeeze the talent like juice into two colanders, Gaga's would be overflowing and Madonna's would be lacking.
Right. And it's just weird that Gaga went down that road. It's maybe there's some personality construct or something where she didn't want people to know her or something. But it's nice.
Also kind of the Elton John model, though, right? Elton John's brimming with talent, and he was over the top crazy for the first half of his career.
Well, here's something that I'm going to make myself right, which is. Elton John had a secret at the beginning, and that was he was gay. And I wonder if when they construct these characters, if they're trying to keep you away from them.
Distracted.
Distracted. Yeah. I mean,
although, weird way to go for Elton John.
Yeah. Well,
they'll never suspect me now.
Yeah.
But like Liberace.
Nobody fills out a bedazzled Dodgers uniform better than me.
Right.
They'll think I'm on the team with these stiletto heels.
And sequined bat.
Right. And Liberace kind of did that too. But I wonder if, and maybe Lady Gaga had things to hide, but wasn't comfortable with herself. And I wonder if there's an element of the sort of keys jingling, like, hey, look over here. And you didn't go like, who are you? Who are you with? What are your sexual proclivities? What was your past? What happened in the past? Like, so keys over here. And you just look and you just kind of follow it. And then
I think that's a very interesting theory, especially it seems, and if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, she really did pivot to a less gimmicky thing after A Star Is Born. Because she even said in interviews, like, the most uncomfortable I've ever been on camera is when I'm not wearing makeup and I'm in this character, which is in jeans. That feels like a costume. So yeah, you're probably right about that. Meanwhile, Garth Brooks seemed to be a late entry to the inauguration, that it didn't seem we hadn't known that he was going to be there until 24 hours before. This is just a snippet of him singing Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
I always think Garth Brooks is a good guy, but I don't know him at all. I don't think I've ever met him.
Well, I think it was probably shocking to a lot of people that just the genre, a country artist, would be at this event. I think that's what people were a little bit surprised at, because we don't equate that usually. You know what I mean?
That was an olive branch to
the MAGA guys. I think everything is pretty well calculated. Sure. And I think you go,
and that he accepted the invitation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He seems pretty even, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. He has a special, if you can get a hold of it. It's Garth Brooks at the Wynn, I believe, in Las Vegas when he had a residency. I'm not a big country fan. He was huge, of course, when I grew up in Kansas. I was kind of neither here nor there. I have seen that special 10 times. And he tells, his life story, and he plays snippets of his music and music that influenced him. And it's phenomenal. So if you can get your hands on that, I highly recommend it.
By the way, tomorrow we're going to have Adam Devine, but also the directors of Tiger, the documentary. So I got questions, many questions.
Finally, J-Lo showed up and I think held her own. She did a little mix of This Land Is Your Land and America the Beautiful, and this is toward the end.
From sea to shining sea, una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Let's get loud. This land was made for you and me.
I was thinking about J-Lo the other day, and there's always on TMZ. Who's she with? A-Rod?
A-Rod.
Yeah, he's always kind of asking questions about her and blah blah blah. Would it be a good thing to be with J-Lo, or would it just be so fucking taxing? Like. Don't you just feel like you couldn't just crack a beer and just sit down and watch a ball game? She'd come in her workout stuff and be on her way to rehearsal or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, would it be too much, too ambitious?
I think A-Rod's the perfect guy for J-Lo because you mentioned they're always asking him questions. Better they ask him questions about J-Lo than about the steroids and you know what I mean? Like he's a bit of a checkered past, and I think A-Rod's at his heart kind of a quiet guy, doesn't want to be bothered. So if they're asking questions about your wife better than they're asking questions about your sordid past.
She's the ultimate jingling keys.
I
She's the
can see
distraction.
that.
Interesting. The other thing about A-Rod is there are guys, I'm trying to think of examples. There are guys that are good looking that we never give credit for being good looking. I don't know, like Mitt Romney's a really good looking guy, but no one ever says good looking,
It's a good example.
Yeah, he's a good looking guy.
He's a handsome fella.
He's so totally handsome, and nobody ever mentions it. Like it doesn't really come up. And then A-Rod was always this hot bachelor. Like I get it. He was the shortstop or third baseman.
Both.
But
Gina was shortstop, so he was shortstop.
Right.
He was third baseman for the Yankees.
Right. He was this perpetual bachelor, like the hunky bachelor stuff. He's not a very good-looking guy. Like whenever I see him, I don't go, that guy's a good-looking dude. He's tan. He's tall. He has like all that stuff kind of working for him, but he's not really classically handsome by any stretch of the imagination. But he was always held out as this good-looking bachelor guy. I don't know. Sorry, I'll go back to being straight.
Sorry, I can't judge dudes.
Speaking of how men look, I think we might have a new Waldorf and Statler from the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't you think that Mitt Romney and John Kerry look like really good-looking Muppets?
Let's see.
Interesting.
Like they kind of
Yeah.
have that Muppet vibe.
Well,
but good-looking
Kerry
Muppet.
definitely. Kerry has
with the jaw.
Right.
Yeah, like he's your dream if you work at a delicatessen and you do the caricatures.
Right.
That's the guy you want, right?
Oh, yeah.
The-
Yeah, that's a portrait.
Right. That's the guy you want rolling.
Right. So let's talk pardons real quick. Donald Trump spent his final night in the White House pardoning his political allies and some high-profile rappers. Included in the final purge of 143 people is Steve Bannon, the ex-Trump campaign CEO and executive chairman of Breitbart. Bannon and Trump had been on the outs since he was the source for quotes in 2018, the book Fire and Fury, about his presidency and his adult children. Bannon was waiting to go to trial in a federal case in which he allegedly swindled more than $1 million as part of a crowdfunding plan for a border wall. Then he pardoned Lil Wayne.
But
who was
I don't get Bannon. Bannon's a horrible guy by all accounts, and he tried to swindle Trump as well. Why would you pardon Bannon? Unless,
to keep him quiet, perhaps?
Yes,
Maybe.
unless Bannon
Loaded.
knows something.
Yeah.
And did the guy that would have been interesting to pardon, they never pardoned, Julian Assange? Was that the guy I was trying to think
I
of?
heard that was floated, yeah.
That would be an interesting guy to pardon, but he never got to him, right? But he got to who? Lil Wayne?
Lil Wayne and
Lil
Wayne. And so he was pardoned. He was busted for felony gun possession while he was on parole. Wayne endorsed Trump and posed for a photo with him just prior to the election. And Kodak Black, another rapper, busted for a weapons charge. So he was pardoned too. So mazel tov to them. Speaking of rappers,
Hold on.
have yes.
You say what you will about Trump, but no one has more range in the pardon department.
Sure.
You show Steve Bannon and Lil Wayne next to each other. Like, here's how much range I got. Everyone in America lands between those two. There's nobody that's outside of either one of those guys. Right. All of us are somewhere in between spectrum. Bannon and Lil Wayne.
Absolutely. Actually, let's do this story because people have been dying to hear it. So I don't know if you got this tweeted to you, Adam, but Yahoo News reports that Oregon police are looking for a man who they say stole a car with a child in the back seat, but returned because the 4-year-old, didn't know that there was a 4-year-old there. So he returned to reprimand the mom about her parenting. So the carjacking took place outside a grocery store in Beaverton, Oregon on Saturday when the mom left the car running with the kid in the back seat to buy a couple of groceries. The thief happened to walk by, hopped in the car, and as he was driving, he realized there was a kid in the back seat. He did a U-turn in the parking lot, returning the child to the mother, but first lecturing the mother for leaving the child in the car and threatened to call the police on her. According to the police report, the thief ordered the mom to take the child before driving off in the car again.
When you leave your kid in the car and the car's running, are you kind of admitting you don't really want to raise this kid? Are you kind of saying...
I was thinking if the car was off, you know what I mean, like doors were locked, to be okay, but...
And they're also, back in the day, like when I was growing up, there was ample reasons to keep your car running. There'd be like, it takes so long to warm up, or it'll stall out, or the starter. Like I knew people's like starters were fucked up and it would vapor lock, or you didn't know if it would start again. There's a lot of good reasons to leave your car running back in the day. Not today. All cars work. They get up to temperature real fast. You don't have to warm them up. You can just get in them and drive them. The heat will start coming out, or the air conditioning, or whatever it is. You just don't need to do it anymore. But I do wonder if I do feel like criminals are being empowered these days. I mean, this guy's a carjacker.
I would be more embarrassed to be the mom than the car thief at this point.
Well, yes, he's a car thief. That's right. Sorry.
But when you're having to tell the police exactly what happened, and you have to include that the car thief came back to lecture you on your parenting, that has to go in the official police report, that's humiliating. Gwyneth Paltrow back in the news. We've talked about her candles before. They're called This Smells Like My Vagina. That's her candle of choice, and it's back in the news because it exploded. So this woman who lives in the UK says there was an inferno in the room and it could have burned the place down because she left the candle from Gwyneth Paltrow burning for, whatever length of time. Paltrow's 48. She launched the candle, last January, I believe. Now she says it has secret notes of geranium, citrusy bergamot, cedar absolutes, and damask rose, which she says is the winning combination for her vagina.
To smell like her vagina?
Yeah.
But
guess how much?
Hold on a second. I want to know what her vagina smells like after a long mountain bike ride, not after she's raped herself with a wax dildo. You know what I'm saying?
Something.
I'm totally on board.
Well, look, if you're going to do the, hints of cinnamon and essence of cucumber.
That's your best.
Yeah. I mean, I could get my hair to smell. Look, my mouth smells like menthol 10 seconds after I brush my teeth. You know what I mean? Like it smells minty fresh. That's 10 minutes, but that's not what my mouth smells like. Let me have a couple of cups of coffee during the day and a wedge of cheese. That's what my mouth smells like. And I feel like if we're buying Gwyneth's vagina in the form of a candle, we can't have her ideal scent of her vagina. It has to be during the natural state.
Well, and talk about heaping praise on yourself. I think the way this candle came to be was Goop. You know, someone at Goop was giving it to her to say, like, you know, what should we name it? And she says, this smells like. So she was the one. I didn't for a reason. She was the one that offered that piece of information to everyone. And so they slapped it on the candle. How much do you think the candle costs, by the way?
Candles can be a little expensive, and all Goop stuff is super expensive. I'm going to go $89.
I'll go higher. I'll go $99.
Well, apparently this is a bargain, $75.
Oh.
Still a lot for a candle.
For
stock up and save.
Candle.
I'm trying to think. I think if I was going to have a candle that was scented like my dick, and I wanted it to be flattering, but I didn't want to go over the top.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Semi-accurate.
it can't just smell like fresh baked bread or cinnamon.
Yeah, muffins.
Your muffin or a hot banana muffin. I think I'd just go with jicama. It's clean. It doesn't remind anyone of anything.
I'd go with basil, you know, appetizing but not overpowering.
Yeah, maybe like a sprig of parsley.
Now you're talking.
Palate cleanser before the real cock starts. Yeah.
A little bit savory.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Mouth water.
Speaking of mouth watering, we have a new Willy Wonka movie in the works, and this is the origin story.
Oh, because the last one worked out so well.
That's right. This one's called Wonka. It's the story of how he came to be the chocolate factory owner, according to the Hollywood Reporter. Wonka's going to hit theaters in 2023 and is from the Paddington director, Paul King.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Well, people love the Paddington movie.
I'm telling you, Paddington's amazing.
Yeah, that's the word on the street.
Paddington is a wonderful. Paddington is a wonderful movie. There's a CGI bear. There's a Paddington 2 that might even be better. These are excellent movies.
That
like
is what
Pixar
everyone's
quality.
And I mean, I'll stick with Ted, but I like that stuff bear too. The studio describes it as focusing on a young Willy Wonka and his adventures prior to opening the world's most famous chocolate factory. I like an origin story. I
hate these because it's like, oh, what did the guy do before he did the interesting thing?
Yeah.
Well, I told you before, that's a whole Patton Oswalt bit about Star Wars.
Is it?
Like,
Okay.
I don't want to see you putting in the HVAC in the Death Star. Like, what do I care?
It's at what, 97 and 80%? Is that Paddington?
Yeah, that's right. Paddington's 97,
Wow.
critics 80, audience.
No, it's 97 with the critics, right?
Yeah, he just said it in a jumbled way, but he meant
Look up the sequel. It might be 100. It's
wow.
excellent. It's truly excellent.
All right, let's bring her home, Gina Grad.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Well, last but not least, there's Geico. Do you own your home? Do you rent your home? Well, you do one or the other, and then you have your automotive policy, and then you go, no, you want to bundle it. You want to get that bundled together with the Geico. Take your homeowners, take your renter's insurance, and bundle it with your automotive insurance, and then save a bunch of money at Geico. That's geico.com. You just go there today, see how much you could save when you get a quote at geico.com. That is geico.com. All right, Oklahoma City, Bricktown Comedy Club, February 26th and 27th. Be doing live podcasts there, early show, and then stand up for the late shows. So come on out and see how the fudge is packed. Kansas City, Missouri, Arvest Bank Theater, March 25th. And then that stand up, Royal Oak, Michigan. Beautiful place, beautiful theater. That'll be the 26th. Do stand up there as well. Go to amcarolla.com for all the live shows and events and check out the free stand-up on our YouTube channel. I want to thank Jerry Springer for zooming in. Judge Jerry. Go to judgejerry.com for your local listings. And until next time, Adam Carolla for Gina Grad and Bald Brian and Jerry Springer saying mahalo.